Hi everyone, my name is Lee. I'm the marketing manager of the US Greens Council, Southeast Asian Oceania. So today I will do another brief recap on the June WASDE report that came out on June 10th. But before the WASDE report, we had a long-awaited correction in corn futures prices, right? Mainly because of the funds are liquidating the long positions, because of the central banks rate hikes, which pressured on the equities market. So maybe they'll have to liquidate position in corn and cover the losses in the other asset classes. Then Russia announced that they will allow grain exports of Ukraine, which put some pressure on corn prices as well. And also significant improvement in the US corn planting progress, which is pretty impressive, that I will show a chart later on. So let's see what we got here on the June WASDE report. For June WASDE report, there's really no big surprise. Everything's within trade expectations. So this month, the 2022 and 2023 corn outlook is for larger beginning stocks, mainly from higher carryout from 2021 and 2022, slightly higher yields and increased ending stocks. So 2021-2022 exports are lowered by 50 million bushels based on US census payroll shipments through the month of April and export inspection data for May. And for 2022 and 2023, the only increase is in the FSI, which is the food, seed, and industrial use. It is raised by 5 million bushels due to projected increases in corn use for glucose and dextrose, while starch is partially offset by a decline in high fructose syrup. So with other 2022 and 2023 use remains unchanged, the ending stocks are raised by 40 million bushels. So the season average farm price is also unchanged at $6.75 per bushel. The major corn global trade changes for 2022 and 2023 include larger corn imports for the EU, and reductions are seen for Morocco, Jordan, and Peru. The only notable change in corn production is actually for Ukraine. They're raised by 5.5 million metric ton, reflecting higher planted area based on what the Ukrainian government says. Then the foreign corn ending stocks are higher as compared to last month, mainly due to increases of productions in Ukraine, as mentioned earlier. And the global corn ending stocks are up 5.3 million metric ton from last month to 310.5 million metric ton. However, the export capacity out of the Black Sea or Ukraine remains a big question, because USDA does still remain the export number of Ukraine at 9 million metric ton next year. So for US corn supply and demand, as we can see, there are not much changes. The area planted, harvested, the yield, production, everything remains the same. The only increase for 2022 and 2023 are based on the food, seed, industrial use, which is up by 0.33% from last month, which led to an increase in total domestic consumption by 0.04%. But because of the higher carryout from 2021-2022, the ending stocks are raised by 2.95% to 35.6 million metric ton. So in the global corn historical outlook, as we can see, the world corn production is increased by 5.09 million metric ton from May. Usage and export remains virtually unchanged at 1186.3 million metric ton and 182.7 million metric ton respectively. And ending stocks, because of the increase in production, it is also increased by 5.32 million metric ton from last month to 310.5 million metric ton. And if we look at the world corn production and consumption, chart, it is now almost the same. Both are at 1186 million metric ton. And now we are seeing the corn stocks for the world, US and China. As mentioned earlier, the world ending stocks will increase to 310 million metric ton. China will remain roughly the same at 204 million metric ton, but for the US, it will be increased by 1.01 million metric ton from May at 35.6 million metric ton. So because of slightly higher in ending stocks for US corn, there's not much change in the stocks usage ratio for US corn. It is at 9.61% based on the latest WASDE report. And for world corn stocks to use ratio, there's a slight uptake because of the increase of production in Ukraine, which we see is at 26.17%. So if we look at the main corn producers in the world, the US will have 367.3 million metric tons of corn next year. China will produce about 271 million metric ton. Brazil will have 126 million metric ton. And for the 2021-2022, USDA still remain their estimates at 160 million metric ton. I'm not sure if they will reduce it because of the drought stress that they are facing in Brazil right now. We shall see. And Argentina, they remain at 55 million metric ton for next year. And the only notable significant increase of production is in Ukraine because of the announcement from the government that they're increasing the corn planted area. So the USDA adjusted the Ukrainian corn production from 19.5 million metric ton last month to 25 million metric ton this month, an increase of 5.5 million metric ton. For main corn exporters, USA is producing, will be exporting 60.96 million metric ton next year. Brazil will export 47 million metric ton. Argentina will export about 41 million metric ton. But for Ukraine, despite higher production, it is still remain at 9 million metric ton. It really depends on the war situation between Russia and Ukraine. Despite Ukraine has announced that they will allow corn export out of the Ukrainian ports, we shall see how the things go, because the USDA for now still remain their export numbers at 9 million metric ton for next year. For main corn importers, not much changes as well. China remains at 80 million metric ton. Mexico is 70.7 million metric ton. EU is increased slightly to 60 million metric ton, with others remains virtually unchanged. And this is the chart I wanted to show you. There was some significant improvement in US corn planting for the past few weeks because of the optimal planting window that he had. That we see that on June 5th, the corn planted has already reached 94%, which is 2% higher from compared to its 5-year average, but still 4% lower than last year. And for corn emerge percentage, on June 5th, it has reached 78%. Still 3% lower than its 5-year average and 11% lower than last year. But with everything is on the right track now, we shall see if the corn emerge percentage will started to pick up and catch up with the 5-year average and even last year. So that's all for the brief recap of the June WASDE data. There's really nothing much to say. These are all the links that you can go and have a look if you want to see the data from the USDA. Thank you so much for your time again, and I hope to see you guys again in the next WASDE report. Thank you.